Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, and alongside me tonight, I have from the great Midwest himself, RDV, who's present to discuss the 2002 movie Phone Booth starring Colin Farrell, a pimp, a bunch of bitches and hoes, and it's 82 minutes thrill rides, much like Cellular, which is why we decided to do it. And it's hard to say all that RDV with a straight face because I got to tell you, I didn't realize Joel Schumacher directed this film till going through the credits and everything afterwards. I'd rewatched it, hadn't seen it in the 20 years since it came out. And I got to say, for a short little action thriller, it still holds up. It's pretty solid. It's pretty good. And I think Colin Farrell does a damn fine job for what he does, too. Plus, the mystery guy who does mostly voiceover here, too, is very good.
For me, this was the movie that got me my eye onto, like, as far as Colin Farrell in movies in the early 2000s. Because I think he did Minority Report later after this, but I was like, holy crap, like, oh, this is the guy in a phone booth the whole entire time, and him have to deal with everything. And it's like, it kind of reminded me of like in the same, not the same situation, but it was kind of like, you remember in Die Hard 3, he was forced to do things he didn't want to and say stuff he didn't want to.
Yes.
Yeah, he's put in the worst situation. Yeah, and this is like, all this was is like, holy crap, it just takes place in a phone booth, and he's being forced to say things he doesn't want to say, and just being confronted by people, and it's just, and then the thing, and Edward Brewer is right. Kiefer Sutherland steals the whole show, because he's such a recognizable voice, but like him playing the sniper in this, and like just harassing him on the phone, and he's like, I know about your wife, I know about how you're been talking to this girl, Pamela, and like, it's like, he's saying like, he talked to both of them, and then like just fucking with the guy the whole entire time. And he's like, and he's like, yeah, I remember the shooter before the shooting last week. No, of course you don't, because you're an asshole and all this stuff. And like, and just like this.
This is before he got 24 famous type. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But still, like, before this, like, he was famous off of Lost Boys.
Yep.
And some other movies, and like, so it says this was like creepy role, and like, I always think back when I think like Kiefer Sutherland playing, creepy. I think he was he also in Taking Lives as well, or is that just Ethan Hawke?
So I think it was just Ethan Hawke. Yeah. Let's get the bad out of the way for the movie, because there's not much of it. And I'll simply say this: if you're one of those guys that's a plot detective, and that stuff matters a lot to you, we don't really necessarily seem like we get a reason for why the bad dude here, that's basically not visible for 90% of the movie, why he's doing what he's doing. There's some stuff in the chatter back and forth about things. You don't understand how he's able to get such a great stuff. You don't really care, because the movie really, really shines with Colin Farrell basically doing what I would call the college level improv type thing, where someone says, okay, you're going to get up there, and like if you're in Toastmasters, a speaking club, and they say, okay, you're going to talk about the spoon. I want you to talk for 2 minutes on a spoon. Here, you can even hold one, go. And you just have to start talking. Colin Farrell does such a great job of being a New York publicist who's walking around. And what I liked about it early on, because I like Colin Farrell a lot, especially since this movie, and you're right about Minority Report, he just jumped on everybody's radar at this point. He brings that New York energy and that vibe to it. And remember, this is post 9/11 kind. Actually, it's not, is it? Yes, it is. So, forgetting how things changed since then, and how movies were, I still feel like it's New York. I feel that excitement and energy of what it's like to be there in Central Park or downtown or Midtown or Uptown or Harlem or whatever. And there's that energy and excitement. You don't get that these days that much with New York. You definitely did then. He captures the way he walks, the way he talks. He's fighting his accent a lot because obviously he's Irish.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, he's got that slick back kind of greaser look, but he's got those puppy dog eyes. But he's a striking individual. I don't know if I want to call him handsome, but he's got a look, and that's served him well too. And for me to see him being a bit of a sleazebag here, publicist, you go, well, he's a bit of a sleazebag, but you don't hate him, because you just go, he's a New Yorker. That means he's fast, he's on the go, and they really demonstrated by having his little assistant stand behind him with all the different cell phones, flip phones, because he's doing all these things. And I love it, because that's wheeling and dealing in the biggest city in the world, basically. People like to say, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And for 75, 80 minutes, once he starts making his phone call, which is basically he's calling so he can't be traced because he's trying to nail Katie Holmes, and she's such a naive person that just moved from out of town. Of course, they were going to hook up or whatever like that, and this gets dragged into it, and you're like, yeah, whatever. But just him talking and the way he's been able to keep that level of intensity and all that, it's broken up by Forrest Whitaker, who's a tremendous actor in his own right, even go back to the early 80s, who plays, the soft-spoken kind of, almost PC kind of, I feel you, brother, kind of, let me calm things down, a de-escalator, if you will. And that's what makes this little back and forth really good, because Kiefer and Colin dominate the movie, but the stuff with Forrest and the side stuff with the I called him a pimp because he was handling his ladies.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. So you get a little bit of comedy in there with escalation. This movie's done well, and it's so tight, it really, really flows. I mean, I don't know how you felt about that, but for me, it really stood out. And even on a second watching, wow, this still holds up.
Yeah, like I said, like it's every little character, and it has his little part here. And I looked it up for Kiefer Sutherland. He had started 24 a year before this. So 2001 was the beginning of the first season. Yeah, and he also wasn't taking lives after this. He played another similar type of role, another like a sick kind of individual, demented, even though he wasn't the main bad guy, but still. Yeah, everyone is phenomenal job in here. Like, it says like, and the scenery and stuff is remember this is 2002. Flip phones are a big thing. Smartphones hadn't come along yet. If you had, if you had anything like that, you might have had a BlackBerry,
Crackberry. Yeah, the business people like that a lot.
Yeah, he had those. Yeah, and like him being a PR means he's not even like an agent. He's this a guy who basically lies to other people to try to get talk him in like, hey, this person, because his content says his what was his agent or guy he was working with what was it? Was that Ben Foster? Who was the kid?
No.
That was in the back?
I don't recall.
In the cab?
Don't recall.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to figure out who it was in the cab. Like, it was some like oh crap. Yeah, I can't remember what his name is. He's another actor, but I think it was it Jared Leto? No. Sorry. Hold on. It was Ben Foster. He was Big Q in the cab, and he was trying to get him a deal, get him on this show and stuff, and then people wouldn't want him. So he was basically lying to people, saying like, "Well, this person wants him," and then he's like, "Well, wait, they really?" He's like, "Well, if you don't want him," he's like, so he's just basically lying to everyone just to get things going. So he's just not a very nice person. He's been
he's promising the world, and then he's going to go figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. Instead, everything that's going on. I want to say some behind the scenes about this, how this came along. Apparently the screenwriter Larry Cohen, back in the 60s, he had pitched this whole idea to Alfred Hitchcock. About a place that takes entirely in real time and within the confines of a telephone booth. And then Hitchcock liked the idea, but the project never moved forward because they could never be able to devise a plot which would explain the action, which we had to restrict to that. So it wasn't until till that year, this year, 2002, 2001, they was able to like, oh my gosh, Sniper, that makes more sense. That then it all came together. So unfortunately, this never became a Hitchcock movie, but I could see how it could be like a Hitchcock movie.
Well, the way Hitchcock would do his films, and a lot of people throw him up there as like one of the greatest directors of all time, and is that he'll set up a situation, and visually as you're watching it, what's supposed to happen. And so the question is, how do the people discover what's supposed to happen? How do they deal with it? And then Hitchcock would tease you and he would draw it out. So I'm not going to call it a less is more approach, but it's a complete 180 from people that do, as we've talked about in horror films, the cheap thrills, the jump scares, and all this silly kind of stuff, or shots that are obvious rip-offs of other things. They're not original. And so it's really hard to do that. And when we talk about, like, say, John Carpenter or some young filmmakers today, like Ty West, that's been influenced by a less is more approach, you get these long, continuous shots that kind of absorb you into this
Mm-hmm.
situation, all that. And here in this movie, what they do is basically the whole movie is that one. He's a few minutes, going through his business. He goes to make a phone call to set up his rendezvous, and then he basically gets stuck there for the rest of the movie. And again, it's only like an 85-minute movie, so let's just say
Yeah.
70, 75 minutes. But while he's in there, the idea is, well, he can't hang up because he'll get shot. And so how do you do this? Well, you have to escalate things every few minutes, and it has to be realistic because it seems like it's in real time. So of course somebody wants to use the phone. It's one of the ladies. It turns out that she's a day worker, and then the others come up. Then they harass. So every couple of minutes they're coming up, banging on it, and they're doing the New York thing, cussing and yelling. She gets
Yeah.
her
They're basically
pimp to come
strippers.
over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's realistic. You see that stuff anywhere on a major metropolitan and a street fair. You also have got the police that wants to get involved and get involved early. What's it going to do? It's going to escalate. You're going to get the news crews. Things are going to get
And
drawn out. It
it was,
just keeps building the entire movie until the
and
very end.
it was believable because, like, as the guy said, like, I know what you're wearing and stuff, like, because at first he's like, it's like, dude, whatever, like, I see you, you're scratching your head and stuff. He's like, oh shit. But then he's like, well, okay, so you just gotta put on binoculars. But then he hears the bolt action,
Yes.
over the phone,
Yes.
and that he's like, oh shit. He's like, he's like, I love characters. He's like, his character is like, it's like, he's like, no, the good guy and the bad guy's gonna, like how he doesn't make that sound until he's going to shoot him. Then why he waits to the very end, because that's scary as shit.
Yeah, that was a good line. That was a good line.
And so he's like, so I love how he's like, well, he's like, but yeah, you're not gonna shoot me. But then he's the little toy robot, which has been, like, you saw the movie, because everybody on the street was selling stuff. There's a guy who's selling these little robots that walk around, toys. He shoots it. He's like, because he proved, like, because he said, like, you're not gonna shoot it here. He's like, dude, I can shoot wherever you want to. Do you think people care about this? I killed 2 guys, in the past 2 weeks. Shot them both in the head. Not a single person cared, heard the shot. It wasn't until they saw a body in the middle of, the street, that everybody freak out,
And it's true, when you're in a busy city like that, you're used to seeing people urinating in the road, defecating, having relations, puking, vomiting, injured. Things happen, but because you're trying to go from point A to point B, it's a different mentality than if you're in a small town where everybody knows everybody and the pace is a lot slower physically and mentally. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the reality of it. So you can see where a bunch of people would go by and not notice things, like if he was in there for a long time and other stuff going on, because it's a big city. Things like this happen daily, if not hourly. And I think when the cops come, Forrest Whitaker gets involved, and there's a little subplot that this other guy wants to take over, like the federales or whatever, and Forrest is basically giving his backstory, trying to sympathize. Forrest Whitaker is really an underrated actor that doesn't get a lot of talk about things too.
Yeah, he was
he's
in, like,
certainly very solid, and he
Mimic
has a presence about
was
him.
the other one who's in. Yeah, he's been in a few movies like this. And, like, Mimic was another one, and I think Mimic's been forgotten by everybody today.
True, that's true. And you had a string of movies that were like that too, that you're going, oh, on the first visit they're okay, but if you watch a second time, it doesn't really stand up. And that's a lot of the 90s and early 2000s. And I think here, again, the problem with the movie is you don't really know why Kiefer Sutherland, the bad guy, is doing what he's doing. So it's very thin, and unfortunately, it's like a James Bond movie.
Towards the end, you kind of get the concept that he said, I follow all you assholes are all on your phone. It's established in the beginning. They say there's how many people have cell phones, and only a handful of people in America, especially visitors, tourists, still use payphones. This is the last phone booth, and this is the last asshole who's basically going to use the phone booth today. And Kiefer Sutherland says, like, it's like, dude, I follow people and I listen to their sins, it's like, obviously he thinks he's some kind of, like, saint, so he's going around.
We know that's what he says.
Yeah,
we don't, because we don't see him, and there's no buildup of him.
Yeah,
it's just a convenient plot thing to have.
Yeah, you guys, obviously they're not good. Yeah, but, and like I said, even at the end, like, you finally see his face, and it leaves it open. And it's like, it's like, hey, you got lucky this time, it's like, but if you slip up again, I'll be there.
Like, yeah, it's
creepy.
I thought it was more ridiculous than creepy. And I thought, even though Kiefer does a great job with the voiceover work, it's a bit cheesy, but it's fun, and that's the whole point. And it is thrilling because again, it all comes down to the strength of what happens in most of the movie, which is just a body shot from, like, say, the waist up, or even just the face of Colin trying to look like a scared puppy dog, and he does with his eyes and his face and everything else there too. But he also
Colin
gives
Farrell is like the perfect actor for the guy in the phone booth.
He is.
Because out of the choices they're gonna have, they're talking about getting Tom Cruise, Will Smith, Mel Gibson, Robin Williams, Anthony Hopkins, and Nicolas Cage. Even after the Jim Carrey, but then Jim Carrey got cold feet and said he doesn't want to do it, so he gave up the role. As I was like, I couldn't. Then the people I just listed, I could not imagine them being in the phone booth, and just selling the weak, kind of, cheating, kind of asshole guy,
Definitely not Jim Carrey.
No, not even Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson is more like the lethal weapon. It wouldn't fit for him. Rob Williams, it's just
too much of a goof.
Yeah. Anthony Hopkins too old. Nicolas Cage, maybe, but Nicolas Cage, it's like I said, Colin Farrell being a guy who's just first popping on the screen,
Yeah. It's not debut, but it's but get started.
Yeah. So I mean, they were supposed to get different directors, at first, they were basically considered like, as far as Steven Spielberg, the Hugh brothers, Michael Bay, and according to Larry Cohen, Michael Bay was removed, from consideration after the first question he asked, how do we get this thing out of the damn telephone booth? Because he didn't want to do that telephone booth. He wanted to make, Michael Bay's making movies.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted to make a Michael Bay film.
Yeah. So Joel Schumacher, who had been considered early in development, was brought back and he directed it, so he stayed on even after Jim Carrey left. And it worked out well because, Joel Schumacher is a good director.
Well, Jim Carrey, in his defense at the time, was trying to get away from comedy and branch out, doing other things like, was it the number 23 or 22 or whatever it was, but also Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or whatever. And Jim's not bad at doing some of those things, and he definitely has an intensity about it. But Colin Farrell's just got that raw magnetism. He looks like he belongs perfectly in New York. He can look a little sleazy, but yet a little handsome. Having that little wussy guy with all the flip phones, I just popped hard for. I thought it was really good. And one of the reasons why, like I said at the beginning, that we decided to discuss this film, besides it being a very good one, is it reminded us a lot of a movie that was Cellular that we talked about last week. I think top to bottom, Cellular is a better film. I'm not saying that to disparage Phone Booth. I think Phone Booth's definitely underrated, and it's one that doesn't get talked about. And that's why we wanted to really emphasize it, because Colin Farrell's performance is great. And I think his performance is probably the best out of both the movies of anybody involved, even though Cellular was a bit more bigger budget and was just hell of a lot of fun too. I think that's great. I think this is just basically a nice movie for an individual actor to have early on. You get to show a lot of things. It's not easy just to basically be in one situation for an entire film and have to deliver it. And Colin Farrell does it. And from this point on, and like you said also, Minority Report, and then was it Daredevil was the year after, 2003. Man, what a way to debut for Colin Farrell.
Minority Report came out the same year as then The Recruit was a year later.
We both loved Recruit. We've covered that here on the Xtreme Movie Show.
But Hearts War was also the same year as this as well. That was the Bruce Willis movie, the POWs. And before this, he was in Tigerland in 2000, and then he was American Outlaws, 2001. So, he was just barely kind of known.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what in this movie is your favorite scene?
Well, I can tell you what's the most realistic first. What for me was as soon as poor Leon, the bouncer, was shot, they accuse him of shooting him, and he's like, "Do you see me holding a gun? How could I shoot him from behind?" And they're like, "You saw that." They're out there all tough, and then Leon gets killed. They're like, "You shot him! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!" They go right inside. I was like, yes, that's how fake people are. I was like, they captured that like really, really good. I was like, that was like probably being like that's close to be my favorite scene. But like I said,
It was humorous.
And then it said there,
it was just missing the
yeah,
pimp slap or the bitch slap. As I've
yeah.
told you many times before,
Because
there's a
he
difference.
pays him like he gives like 100. He's like here it's like 150 or 200 bucks. And he's like, he's like, well, you want to rent this phone booth? Like he's like, and they're like, what? And girls are like, no, I need to use a phone. And it's like, he's like, well, he's like $500. You can use this phone indefinitely. He's like, and the hoes are getting all mad because he's like not. They're like, no, beat his ass. And like, he's like, no, I'm making money. But no, but favorite scene. When he has Forrest, he tells Forrest because Forrest comes up and he's like, "Oh, look at this piece of crap guy." He's like, I was like, it's a Forrest, blah blah blah. Said he's like, "Can I kill him?" His name was like, "No, can't kill him." He's like, "I want you to ask him." Like, it's like because he's talking about how because Forrest Whitaker is a cop. He's like, yeah, talking like how he's like, oh, he's divorced from his wife. It's like, well, he's like, I want you to ask him. Do me a favor, do this. He's like, ask him. What? Could you not sexually please your wife? It's like, do you beat your meat now? He's like, I'm not gonna ask him. He's like, he's forcing that. I was like, do it. Oh, shoot, you're pretty your wife over there because he's got his wife there. He was brought there at the scene, because he's on TV, and then he's got Pamela, his would-be mistress, the one he's been talking to, but never acted on, as far as and like they're both watching. He's like, do it, or shoot one of them. It's like, it's just like, it just kind of felt like, back to like Scary Movie, or not Scary Movie, but a Scream. Like, what's your favorite movie? It's like, wrong answer. So I was like, is he gonna kill somebody? I was like, it's like, he only killed the pimp, but he didn't kill like any of the cops. But I was like. But then you see like, oh, there's the little red laser. I was like, oh, this looks so bad. The little red laser. but I said like that's the thing is like they could have made it so much worse. But like but Kiefer Sutherland's character, even though he's crazy, he knew if I kill a cop, then it's like he's like no, he went to fuck around with Colin Farrell and make him say shit. Confess, and it's like
It's to me one of the better scenes was when Forrest Whitaker's there and Forrest starts to get the sense that this guy's just not a New York whack job or high on PCP or whatever, that there might be something to it because we know Kiefer planted the gun in the top of the thing, so that's raising the stakes there too, right? And that was cool. But it's when he makes a comment and they use that coded kind of language where he says, I just wanted to let you know that we're right behind you. And, he's basically letting Colin in there know that I know something's up. And Kiefer kind of misses them going back and forth. But that's the turning point when Forrest kind of gets to go on the side because no, in New York City, this dude had been let up. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how many people there. They'd have been like, let's kick some ass. And they would have put him down. I mean, that's just reality. Let's be honest. So I thought that was kind of neat. I thought, oh, where's this going to go? Because not soon after, we get the evil thing that Kiefer did. And it was also funny because it's a very New York thing where the setup where he's on the phone and the pizza guy comes up to deliver pizza to him and leaves. We see the pizza guy again because he uses him as his fall guy, as his false flag, if you will.
Yes.
In the room at the end of the movie, we find out that and you're like, oh, like that Kiefer, he's he must be a CIA plan or something. God forbid I say something like that here on YouTube, but it just makes you go, well, what the hell?
Recognize this guy? Yeah, it's the guy who tried to sell me a pizza and I told him to F off, He's like, and that character like is I know guys like that the pizza guy, you're just like so annoying like that. It's like he tells me like, you're not being very nice. It's like, really, dude. It's like it's
well, you think it was tough. I mean, he's working hard.
So here's what's funny thing too is it's not funny but interesting because there's a scene there where one of the prostitutes walks up to him and calls him the N-word, Colin Farrell, and he's a phone booth, and his Colin Farrell's reaction is genuine because it was not in script, it was ad-libbed. So the way he reacted, his facial response is like, what the it's like, So I mean I thought that was kind of cool, but Kiefer, like I said, Kiefer Sutherland using the fall guy, I'm thinking like, man, I guess cops will believe it's the pizza guy slit his own throat so you can't what. You
Hey,
know, and
let's
then
get the paperwork in, so we got the
and the
weekend off. There you
and
go.
then
We'll go
and
catch
then
the next.
the other thing was like the cop, because I love how Forrest Whitaker is like, dude, you guys idiots. Like he shoots a guy and then stays in the phone booth to make a phone call. I'm thinking if I've been like, do you see a rifle? I mean, how did he shoot him in the back where he's laying that way? It's like, they're the only witnesses are these prostitutes. It's like, ah, crap. Pull up a traffic cam. That's what I would have been like.
Yeah.
Boom. There you go. He didn't kill anybody.
And the way something like this movie, like I said, when it came out post 9/11, we talked about how cellular did a great job of capturing what it was like with cell phones at the time. So in a way, you could argue that's a bit of a period piece too. And there's no way you can ignore the whole cell phone conundrum in movies. We've talked about that with Scream, which was '96. We've talked about cellular, which is what 2004. This one, and really, Phone Booth did such a great job of introducing it because logistically, it does place certain constraints on what you can and can't do, that whether or not you believe it, a cell phone, you can do this and do that. Yes, that it's really crazy that Kiefer is able to do everything 100% accurate. We get that. But it sets up these rules that it tries to follow, and at least it sticks with them a little bit. And that's the beauty of a film like this, because again, we can talk about how it was set up like a Hitchcock film. We can talk about how they kept escalating everything until there was a release there at the end, and 82 minutes. It's hard to keep something going nonstop. There's very little, downshifting in the first or second gear and coasting or coming to a complete stop. And so this movie is very successful because of that. And I think Colin Farrell's performance is really good in it as well. Forrest Whitaker's solid. She was really good too. Mitchell, what's her name? Rada Mitchell?
Rada Mitchell.
Pitch Black, was it?
Pitch Black was the role that she was in before this.
And that's where you would know her from.
Yeah. For those who are fans of The Rookie, Richard T. Jones plays the captain in The Rookie. He's in this. He plays the sergeant that's up there. It shows up next to Whitaker. Tell him like, this guy. What are we doing here? Like, can't trust.
When can we shoot him and get out of here?
Yeah. It's like But Rada Mitchell, famously known for Pitch Black, she was a captain of the plane, the pilot stuff. Just wanted to leave. And then she was also in Silent Hill.
Oh, that's right.
And she was the mother on Man on Fire. With Denzel
I
Washington.
only wish
Yep.
you had more time. That you don't like, but I love. We're going to be getting to that soon.
She was on the show called Red Window back in 2013, but she was also starring opposite of Bruce Willis in Surrogates. She was one of the cops. That was going around with him, the androids. That was one where they use robots. Everybody sat in the VR thing.
Yeah,
she was his partner at So I mean, she's been in a few other things, but like her biggest thing was were Man on Fire, and then Pitch Black, and then said Phone Booth. I was like, I forgot that she's in this, and she just has that look. She's always plays like the rich kind of wife,
but not the country club.
Rich kind, not fake rich, no, but she's she's the last thing I think she's in. What was in The Girl at the Window. That's supposed to come out post production, so I'm not. That's supposed to be probably another one of those movies like The Girl on the Train or the.
Yes, more of those horrible movies. Oh yeah. Right, but as we close up here, like I wanted to just say, cellular is really good. This is really worth a watch from anybody. It's surprisingly very good and holds up well too. I can point out some things I think that are obviously aren't too solid as far as the plot goes and all that stuff, but it's not that kind of a movie, so it doesn't bother me at all. So Colin Farrell's performance, again, number one reason to watch it, and it's a masterclass in just what it's like to go, okay, you're going to act like this and it's going to keep escalating, and how can you do it? His energy's on point the entire movie. Not everybody can do that. Well cast, well shot, enjoyable little quick flick here, especially for the summer. It's a nice brainless kind of movie to watch and get a thrill ride with it. What final thoughts do you have, sir?
Final thoughts. If you're a fan of 24, this film is set in real time, and this is the time span in which it takes as long as it takes to watch it. So they filmed this within 10 days. Like they use if you remember they call it a French hours, where you don't have a lunch. They just have food on set for you to eat, during between breaks, filming.
Yep.
So definitely check out if you've never heard of Colin Farrell, because it's possible, because he's not that big of an actor today anymore. He's not really doing much. But
Yeah.
you want to see him at his prime, where he was famous for a long time. Check out Phone Booth, check out Minority Report, Heart's War,
Miami Vice.
Don't watch Daredevil. the
Daredevil will, yeah.
Even though he was great as Bullseye on there, he was a weird character in that. But
more recently, the second season of True Detective.
Oh, great in that.
Yeah.
SWAT was okay. But Miami Vice, check out that.
Yeah, he was on fire in that, and the reason why I say that is a big Miami Vice fan here, broadcasting to you live from the Pinellas Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. It's directed by Michael Mann as well,
and also the reboot of Fright Night. He played Jerry, phenomenal.
And we like that. We've covered that as well here on the Xtreme Movie Show.
Since then, he's been like, wow, I'm looking at the movies. I'm like, I don't recognize any of these movies. Oh, wait, most recent role was the Penguin in the Batman movie with Pattinson. So, which you won't even recognize him unless you know it's him. He put so much makeup on him and everything to make him look totally different. But
yeah, look for a review for that coming soon here on the Xtreme Movie Show. I believe that's one that's on our short list as well too. So, yeah, he's had some personal issues, with the bottle, being Irish, if you want to say that, off and on, and he's made god awful amounts of money.
The New World, that's the one where I just stopped caring about him. That was the
I did not mind the New World, believe it or not. I actually kind of liked it.
I saw it and I was like, oh, he's doing these weird indie drama movies now. I was like, oh, geez, he went from the action movies to like, okay. But then he came back with Miami Vice. So I was like, it's like, bro, once you leave action, you can't really return to it. Total Recall was his other one he did.
Yeah, but that's got Ronald Mitchell in it. So anyway, all right, guys. I want to thank everybody for listening, especially some of the newer people like Marvin showing up tonight that we haven't heard too much from too. Again, the best thing to show your appreciation, guys, besides showing up, is letting other people know about us. We've gotten an uptick recently in subs. We typically are broadcasting live Tuesday nights and Sunday nights, maybe with an off time drop during the week of some additional content too, with the holidays and some traveling itinerary between a couple of us here on the Xtreme Movie Show. We'll be broadcasting something live next Sunday. We've been doing, of course, Professor Pixel Night, a third member here of the Xtreme Movie Show. He and I have been doing The Prisoner. We're getting ready to do episode, I believe, 3 on that. We're doing that live. Check that show out. It's free on Tubi. We've recently finished doing every episode of Twin Peaks over the past year, and monthly we've been doing the James Bond films in order. We're getting ready to do The Man with the Golden Gun, which will be dropping here within a week or two. RDV and I usually co-host here on Tuesday nights, doing mostly action films in general, but we'll cover horror, we'll cover sci-fi, we'll cover requests. We love 80s movies in general, but when in doubt, we'll go back to Chuck Norris and those kind of guys, because that's just where we have a lot of fun with it too. And we just felt inspired with Cellular and Denzel Washington to do more Denzel and to do more phone booth kind of stuff, because it's kind of cool, really. Mm-hmm. All right, have a good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As always, stay extreme.
Never answer random paintballs.
Star 69 them. Good night.